Greetings, friends. Welcome to episode 118 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I'm joined by Trevor Portz of Abhoria and ASHEN HORDE. He came on the show to talk about the brilliant new Abhoria debut record. I spoke about it on the show about 2 or 3 weeks ago. As is usually the case on this podcast, we got waylaid and excavated a fair few rabbit holes, but a great conversation. A little less spicy than last week's, but judging by the response to my conversation with Katie that I posted last week, you guys do like yourself some spicy conversation. This was the first ever episode of the podcast that went over the 10,000 mark on YouTube for views, and that is in the space of a single week. So I'm absolutely blown away. I mean, I was kind of struggling to find words there for a second. But I'm stunned, and I just want to say thank you so much to everybody. I massively appreciate the support, and I massively appreciate the open-mindedness for myself and Katie to be able to have a conversation like that everybody embraces and gives such great feedback for. And obviously, I think a lot of the views and things like that came from everyone spreading the word and sharing on their social medias. So I am, hugely grateful, hugely appreciative, and I hope that I can continue to keep the momentum from here on out. Before I go anywhere else on this podcast, though, I want to play you all a track. This is not a demo of the week or anything like that. Cheyenne of Trivax posted about this song on Instagram earlier today. I'm recording this on a Saturday, so he posted about this earlier today. I checked out the song, absolutely loved it, and thought I should share it with all of you. Just because I feel like it. This is a band called SIDIOUS. They're out of London. They are dropping a record on the 11th of March called Blackest Insurrection. It's going to be out on Crowbar Records. And this is the first single, I believe, they've pushed off this album. It's called Blood-Soaked Mist. Blood-Soaked Mist by SIDIOUS off of the forthcoming record, Blackest Insurrection. That's going to be available on Crowbar Records. Hard shit for hard times. But yeah, great track. Really looking forward to hearing the rest of that album. And as I said, no real reason for sharing it other than it's my show. I can do what I want, and I liked it and thought you guys will like it also. One thing I'm very sure you are going to like is the news segment coming up later on in the show. I'll do my usual reacts and news rants. I'll also be reviewing the new Crowbar record, Zero and Below. And then at the very end of the show, I'll thrill all of you with a new track by Werewolves. They put out the video for it this week, so it's not like I'm letting the cat out of the bag on anything, but just in case you haven't heard it yet, I think that you should. As always, remember to smash the subscribe button on your podcasting platform of choice if you're new to the show. Also, follow the show on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And, of course, head over to the Teespring store if you want to deck yourself out and into the Necrosphere gear. Strut the streets looking both understated, yet also necro and badass. And then finally, shout-outs to Everything Went Black, Necromaniacs, and the Horrorwolf 666 podcasts. I kind of feel like we're starting to build a bit of community. Very organically, but there feels to me like there's a bit of a community springing up around some of these podcasts. And I do think one day I need to sit down with the guys and we need to figure out a way in which we can sort of take that to the next level. I think Katie's podcast will, hopefully be part of that as well. And then we just need to pull in Alan at Agitators Anonymous, and we need to get Kelly and Matt over at Slaves to the Underground and have them join in as well. But who knows? We can kind of start our own version of Gas Digital, but good. Anyway, no throwing shade at Gas Digital. They're very good. I was just being facetious. There is very little facetiousness in the next hour and a half or so, though. Lots of music geekery. So I'm going to welcome to the podcast for the first time Trevor Portz of Abhoria.
Sorry, that was weird.
No worries. Yeah, I was about to say it's unsweetened black tea at least. So it's, there's like something slightly grim to it. Well, I am currently drinking a Camden Hells. I'm not sponsored by them, but I do drink their beer an awful lot on the podcast. Dude, so Abhoria has been out for I think a week now, and in addition to being featured on this podcast, which pretty much is the ceiling for most bands when it comes to their ambition. I mean, the reviews for it has been fantastic so far. Uniformly so. I mean, even Angry Metal Guy, who's notoriously fickle when it comes to the kinds of scores they dish out, were very complimentary. And I think it was actually their review that made me check out the record. How do you feel about it? It was a bit of a departure for you from ASHEN HORDE. So I guess there was maybe a little bit of trepidation in releasing something that different to your main musical vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. With ASHEN HORDE, I feel like we've kind of carved, we're not like a household name by any stretch, but carved out kind of a specific thing that we do, which is pretty much a little of everything, right? It's kind of not genre specific in any way. And what I wanted to do with Abhoria is really do something more genre specific. So I wanted to keep it much more focused in the black metal realm that I was, such a big fan of back in the late 90s. And so, yeah, there was the piece of that like, I was afraid, if I tried to write something a little more genre specific, is it going to sound derivative? Is it going to just sound like a copy of everything else? If I try to hone in on it. Oddly enough, a lot of the reviews, like you mentioned, they've been great, which is fantastic. Have pointed out that it's not particularly purely black metal. It's got other elements in there, which is funny because I really thought I'd kind of tamp those down with this, but obviously not. But if anything, maybe that gave it a little bit of uniqueness that caught people's ears. So yeah.
Well, I was about to say that's the problem with having a big CD collection is there's a lot of influences that you're drawing from subconsciously all the time.
Yes, all the time. And yes, as you can see behind me, I am a major CD and vinyl collector. I like a lot of different things, so I think it's kind of inevitable that stuff's going to creep into my writing one way or another.
So total number of CDs that you have behind you first and foremost, just so I
It's been a while since I've tried to actually calculate, but without exaggerating, 100% honesty, it is over 10,000. I know that for a fact.
Holy fuck. I mean, I think when way back when, because I grew up in South Africa, so like buying a CD was a really big deal, especially when I was a teenager. But I thought I was a big deal when I hit about 250, 300 CDs. But yeah, 10,000 is that's a different kettle of fish. And vinyl.
Vinyl, let's see. I don't know. How much does a standard this white shipping vinyl boxes hold? Maybe 30 per. I've got 16 of those next to me. So, yeah, in the hundreds. Not quite as widespread as CDs. I'm definitely for years been a CD collector above vinyl,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of vinyl too.
And so, just because I'm a hi-fi nerd as well, what setup do you have to listen to this on?
Wow, this is probably not going to be super impressive. I mean, I just have an Onkyo 7.1 surround in the living room. That's that. I have to be honest though, most of my music listening these days tends to be on headphones.
Yeah.
I've got Sony studio monitors and some other nice headphones, but given that I live in LA, an apartment with my wife who's not as big a metalhead as I am, I tend to do that. So, but I also have a nice studio set up here for recording with some Yamaha's stuff, and so I can put stuff in here. But yeah, honestly, most of my music listening tends to be headphones or in my car. Is that I can really do. So yeah, I don't have this wicked, 6-figure system to brag about, unfortunately.
Well, who knows, mate? When the way like LA property prices are, when you move up and head down to Florida, like the rest of California,
right? Exactly.
you never know what you might be able to afford.
Exactly.
How long have you been living in LA for?
Just over 11 years. We moved here in November of 2010 from New York. My wife and I had lived out in New York for about 10 years, and honestly, I just burned out. New York City is a wonderful place, but after 10 years of it, it became very exhausting and stifling, and I needed to do something else. I was also working in advertising, which in and of itself is kind of crippling, and so we decided to pack our things and go west, and been here ever since.
What was it about New York that burnt you out? Just the pace, the sheer volume of people?
Yes, all of that. It's just intense. And I do think the work setup was a part of that, because I worked in a very intense workplace. So, and, trying to do music with that was exhausting. I also had tried to get some bands off the ground out there and never really went anywhere. They had fallen apart by that point. So there just wasn't much keeping us there. But yeah, just there's so many people. I felt very trapped. I couldn't afford to have a car and go on road trips and do all the things. We couldn't afford to travel the way we wanted to. So coming out here just opened up a lot more for us. It's just a different lifestyle.
What do you think about where New York is headed now? I think particularly in the last kind of 2-3 years, obviously de Blasio was gone, but just in terms of where the city is now, one really interesting statistic that I read was that I think something like 27% or 28% of people that lived in New York this was mid 2021 indicated that if they would take a pay cut to go and live somewhere else.
Yep.
And as an outsider, actually before the pandemic, we booked a trip to New York. We were planning to spend Christmas 2021 there. Well, sorry, 2020. Actually, we were going to spend Christmas 2020 there. I was going to do the whole shebang, like Christmas Day at Tavern on the Green and everything like that.
There you go.
So you kind of have this very romanticized picture of New York in your mind. And then, all of a sudden you start reading this barrage of people like, I hate the fucking place, I want to leave. It's like...
Yeah, that's funny because, I guess it's probably what hit us is hitting a lot of people. There are a couple things about it. One is the cost of living. It's atrocious. Yeah. To be honest, it's not that much better in LA. It's a little better. Yeah. You get more for your money here, and it's a little more, spread out. But that's a big part of it. We had a nice place in Brooklyn that I was renting from a friend. We got a good deal on, but the fact is, for the first couple of years I lived there, and this was in the early 2000s, we were paying almost $1,700 for a 1-bedroom apartment that was essentially a dorm room. And, at that point, both of us were just working in kind of retail jobs, real basic. And it's ridiculous. And when we, even after we started making a little more money and doing better, we were looking at places, and you can buy a 1-bedroom apartment for $1 million. And I just don't see the value in that. At some point
No.
when I got into my 30s, I don't need to live like that anymore. It's also, my wife would argue about this with me. She likes New York more than I do. I think I've gotten over my disregard for it over the years, but it's kind of pretentious and it's very gruff. And I don't know, it's a bit unrelenting. It really it is. I feel like it's hard to settle in there. And that was great when I was in my 20s because like I wanted action all the time. I wanted this disruptive lifestyle. But at a point it was a little bit too much. And you know, in music scene too, meeting people was so hard. There were a lot of musicians, but not a lot that I actually wanted to deal with.
Yeah. So you never like bumped into Mike Hill from Tombs or anything like that?
No, at that point, no, I don't even think I was aware of any of them. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and again, I mean, like, from an outsider's perspective, you kind of know about New York hardcore, and you know about Immolation, and you know a lot of the kind of New York death metal bands. But like the style of music you're into, that doesn't that never, you know, with the exception of Tombs, there weren't a huge number of black, you know, like New York black metal bands kind of screaming out at you. I've been surprised in the last couple of years by the number of great LA black metal bands I've discovered, though. You know, which like I've discovered your music. There's a local band called Born Ultra, who I am still astounded to this day on signed. But there definitely seems to be a groundswell of good black metal coming out of California, more so than I would have given it credit for, considering the fact that you guys have year-round great weather. like great weather doesn't necessarily make for great black metal, in my opinion. Like, you can understand why people are going to make good black metal here because the weather fucking sucks all the time. But I mean, you guys have too much to be happy about in California.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. And it's funny because even for me, when I moved here and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do from a music angle, whatever it was, I was like, no, I want to get back into this because this was the style I first started playing when I got into actually playing music. And yeah, I don't know why it's so conducive to creating black metal because you're right. The weather's beautiful. I am not a basement dweller. I like going out. I like hiking. I like.
Oh, you've smiled for most of the conversation.
I've smiled way too much for a black metal guy. I'm sorry. But yeah, for whatever reason, it really has kind of stimulated that bit of creativity. Yeah, and you mentioned what the band you just mentioned, but I mean, Imperialist, I think, are from nearby here, and they create great, like, you know, kind of sci-fi black metal. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to them, and I'm going to hopefully have them on the podcast at some point. I had not known about them, and then Kelly T from the Slave to the Underground podcast, she mentioned them to me when we did our end of year like 2021 review, and I totally agree with you. Absolutely top notch, really good stuff.
Yep, they're fantastic.
Did you, when you moved out of New York to LA, did you kind of move and continue down the advertising route as well, or was it total change of lifestyle, change of career, next chapter kind of thing?
All of it. Yep. Total change. Got into a different area altogether. Work in finance, which is kind of the opposite of everything metal, but it's just a different thing. It's been really great for me. And, you know, but yeah, it was a full change of pretty much all aspects of my life.
And like, my day job is as corporate as it gets. So I'm when it comes to, like, you know, like functions within an organization, especially a large multinational, I'm very well versed in that. But I was just about to say, it's quite a leap from advertising to finance. I mean, in terms of the kind of person that you would generally expect to work in one or the other, they're diametrically opposed.
Oh, absolutely.
So which is why I was surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know, the advertising world was much more, you know, t-shirts and shorts, very laid back. You said what you thought, you cursed like a sailor, and it was all kind of like that was part of the world. And I came here and it was much more buttoned up, very respectful, you know, which is fantastic. But at the beginning, it was very off-putting for me. I think I just kind of sat there quietly for the first few months because I had no idea what I was doing. And, you know, I was the only long-haired guy in the building. That's for sure. Everyone's very buttoned up. And so I kind of stuck out, and things have chilled a bit, and I kind of carved a niche for myself as that guy. But yeah, it was a bit of a change. But at the same time, all the things that caught me off guard when I came have made my life significantly better. And I'm not just out here, towing the corporate line for the company I work with, but it's such a different thing. And the fact that it's not as mentally taxing every day where I'm just hating my life and wishing I could do something else, enables me to put a lot more energy into music, and not feel like it's just this thing I'm trying to do when I have no energy left.
What got you down the advertising route initially? Was it watching Mad Men and going, that Don Draper gets to drink whiskey in his office?
Yeah, no. Oddly enough, you'd think that would scare me away. Yeah, and I'm glad to say that at least in the modern office, the
whiskey drinking and the philandering isn't
the rampant misogyny is all gone. Thank goodness. Yeah. No, it was just kind of pure dumb luck. I was working at a retail place because that was what I did. I moved to New York when my wife got into college out there. And so I kind of packed up my things. My black metal band had split because we were all moving, we were young, and moved to New York, and I was just working retail because I didn't really have any experience, didn't know what I was doing. It was kind of fun though. I worked at a retail shop that had a lot of celebrity customers, so I did get to meet some cool people like Sean Connery and Rick Ocasek and John Cleese, that would come in. I was the fanboy that would go up and actually bother them while they were shopping and get autographs. Yeah. So that was amazing. But anyway, when that kind of fell apart, I just took a temp job, ended up being in an advertising agency, and just kind of worked my way up. In a bizarre twist, though, what really helped me along in my career is I had learned that the owner of the company was a guitar player and guitar collector. So one Friday, I'm this weird, again, long-haired new guy no one knows. I walked into his office and just said, "Hi, my name's Trevor. I hear you play guitar." And that was, he turned around, we had a really nice chat. And it wasn't that got me like a better job, but it got me on his radar and kind of allowed me to,
I was about to say that doesn't sound like you finances your game, mate. Born salesman. You can spot where the opportunities to build the rapport.
Right. And finance was, again, just kind of a fluke. It was a job that I was like, I think I can do this, and here I am.
So I went the exact opposite study wise. I actually work in talent acquisition now. So, but I originally went to become, I studied to become an accountant.
Oh.
Did my first year, passed all my subjects, said to my dad, if I continue doing this, I'm going to fucking kill myself by the time I'm 25. I can't do this for a living. And the first year of my degree was quite broad. So it was very business focused. What I enjoyed very much was economics and marketing as two kind of ancillary subjects that I was doing. Decided to go down the marketing route very stupidly, then realized when I'd gotten my degree, marketing and advertising is not for me. And then I went into sales and kind of fell into what I do right now. And, that's worked out pretty well. But like I said, kind of went the opposite route to you. But the most hardened black metal dude I know. I mean, like literally that guy bleeds black metal, or he bleeds the cult.
Yes.
He's the person when you see him on the street, you'll least think it of, like buttoned down, very smartly dressed. I mean, he's a genius when it comes to finance, just generally speaking. But I mean, he's worked in high level transformation roles and things like that. So he knows his stuff from a business perspective and a finance perspective. But as I said, the most diehard black metal man I've ever met in my entire life. So you definitely can never judge a man by what he does, or a book by its cover, as you know.
Absolutely. And it's it's funny, in my experience over however 30 years of being a metal dude, I found that a lot. It's kind of funny to me, the people that in a lot of cases look the part, live the part externally. Like if you see them on the street, you're like, boom, that is the dude that is sacrificing goats, all that. They're kind of like the weird outliers. Most of the musicians I know in the scene are really not like that. And it's kind of funny, despite the fact that that's the music we love and the music we play and the darkness that we channel, most of them don't appear like that externally, which I find a bit amusing.
That's what gave me the idea for the podcast. And I've said this on the show before, what I experienced, because again, you come at it as a fan and as, somebody who grew up listening to it. So I'm sure, we'll get into this in a little bit, but when I was in my teenage years, I think back to something like the music video to The Lost and Curse of Reverence by Emperor. And you've got, now when I look at it, I kind of cringe, but you got Ish on there with his fucking armor standing outside in the
Oh my God. For a
forest.
teenager, it was so cool.
I know. It's like, it's so bad now, but when you see it for the first time, it's like, this is fucking brilliant.
Yep.
But you also think to yourself, like, that is the most sinister, grim, evil man I've ever seen in my life. And, you know, you can go down the list of particularly the Norwegian bands, you know, be it Immortal, Satyricon, bands like that. You like, these guys must be out of their minds, the most sinister, extreme dudes ever. And then you meet them and you go, there's a very interesting dichotomy there where it's this guy who's got this very extreme persona on stage. And when you meet him, he's the most down to earth, chilled out man on the face of the earth. And I always wanted to be able to showcase that in this podcast, like get under the skin of somebody's personality and kind of get just get people talking about stuff that gets them excited and you know, is interesting to them. I had Gol on the podcast, and you know, it was quite a bit of back and forth. Eventually, what really got him talking was talking about wine.
Oh, wow.
And my thoughts were always, as I said, as I was doing these interviews originally for Metal Rules and Chronicles of Chaos, was I wish I could be in a position where I could showcase that side of these extreme characters, because that's kind of the side that I find the most interesting. Yeah. You know, it's like when I think about on a completely different level, but you read about serial killers and stuff like that. I'm not interested in any of the graphic gore elements of what happened. I'm interested in the person. Yeah. You know, when I'm watching a documentary, like, you know, I'm very interested in pro wrestling as an example. So if I watch a documentary like the Dark Side of the Ring documentaries, I'm interested in what makes the person tick, what makes them do what they do. I'm curious as to, you know, what on earth made you decide that's a good idea to cut that promo on somebody or to say that when you were in the ring or whatever the case may be. And it's kind of the same with music as well. Like, I'm always excited by the little subtle touches that I hear on a record, you know, whether it's, you know, a well-placed or you know, just little things like that. Or the way, like the other day I was having a conversation with Ross Dolan, and he was talking about like just the timing of a particular line that had stood out to me. And like, he remembered how it was to record that in the studio and why it ended up sounding like it sounded. But I've always been interested in those little subtle touches, which is kind of, as I said, you know, coming full circle, which is why I ended up starting the podcast.
That's great. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I love that nuancy stuff. I love in, you know, autobiographies and stuff that when they start going down the well of why they did little things that, you know, a lot of people probably don't care about or never thought about. I love that. You mentioned, though, something that I think is funny. In going back to that scene, talking about the Lost and Curse of Reverence video, I also thought about like the Mother North video for Satyricon where he's like smashing the crosses and all that, right?
Genius.
I have to admit, I struggled a bit with the shift because back in the day, yes, it was almost like when I first discovered Kiss. When I was a little kid, we watched Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, which, you know, one of the greatest movies ever made. Real life-changing for me, but they very much felt like larger than life, not to specifically quote a song, but like they were not human and they felt like something else, almost superhero. And when I got into death metal, okay, it was death metal guys, but with the black metal guys, it felt like that again. Like they were scary. And there was an article, I think it was in Rolling Stone. I can't remember, God, if it was Dead, it might have been Who, or Maniac, who would like had the bag with the dead bird in it. He would breathe in before he performed to like feel the smell of death when he was performing.
I think that was Dead.
I think that was Dead, right? Yeah. It's been a while. So those kind of things, you know, even when I first saw Mayhem at Milwaukee Metal Fest, and you know, Maniac's up there cutting himself up with a machete, that kind of stuff, they felt like scary and inhuman and all this stuff. So there was a weird moment when bands, musicians started popping up on Insta, like Isan and Shagrath and Satir and all these, and suddenly they're posting pictures of their daughter's birthday party and hiking with their dogs and, you know, that kind of thing, where I was kind of like, whoa, it shattered the illusion. So at first I thought it was kind of weird. Now I'm with you. I think it's cool. And I like getting behind and really learning who the people are beyond the
end. The thing for me is it makes me like them even more. Like if I think about Mayhem as an example. So you look at the Instagram for Attila as an example, you know, he's such a complex dude because when he's on stage, I mean, the guy is, in my opinion, the elite of the elite like black metal frontmen. His voice is incredible. His performance is amazing. He's got such an aura on stage. But he's also such a multi-layered, multifaceted man. He's into vintage hi-fi. He's into, cool cars. He's into, he's got a way in which he presents and kind of carries himself that's a million miles away from the fucking lunatic that you see on stage. But like I said, it makes me love seeing the lunatic that much more.
Yes.
Because I know that what he's presenting there is kind of authentic as an expression of himself, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just like I would take that over, and not to bash on any bands, but I would take that over like, the way that in when new metal was at its peak, a lot of these guys kind of seemed to live what they were on stage, but it was just, you're a fucking loser on stage. You seem to be a loser in life as well. So I have far more respect for someone like like Satyr, who shows off his Porsches on Instagram.
Absolutely, right?
But when he's on stage, he's still Satyr and he's still making good music, although arguably the last Satyricon record was terrible.
Oh, okay. We can debate this one next. I disagree wholeheartedly.
So let's pause there. Make the case for Deep Calleth Upon Deep, because I've hated on. So this is going to be probably episode 117 or 118. I've hated on that record for the better part of 116 episodes. Wow.
Okay. So minus there's like a really I forget which song. There's like a horrible saxophone thing that I can't stand. Across the board, I hate saxophone. Doesn't matter what band it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Calm Death, Eson, Satyricon, get rid of them. But I don't know. I felt it was like, Satyricon did such a major shift when they kind of ditched the old school thing after Rebel Extravaganza and kind of got into the almost black and roll. And lately it's like major chord black and roll. But I don't know. I guess I'm more curious about what you didn't like about it. To me, it felt like kind of the natural progression after Now Diabolical and everything. Like, yeah, this is the new Satyricon record. It's what I expected, and I thought it was very solid. So what about it didn't you like?
So I firstly, I thought it was a terrible idea to get somebody who had, who was known for producing rock bands like AC/DC to produce that record. I mean, it was clear to me, he as great as he was producing AC/DC, he doesn't know black metal. So the mix sounded completely weird to me. Like, the drums aren't in the right place. The vocals sound off. The guitar sound is off to me. It makes the songs all sound extremely toothless, in my opinion. Because I was on board for the original shift. I like Volcano. I really like Now Diabolical, like to a point where I would say, as much as I first got into Satyricon through the Shadow Throne and through Nemesis Divina. Yep. But if you were to push me on what's my favorite Satyricon song, I would say To the Mountains on Now Diabolical. I think it's an incredible track. And I was even willing to go with the stuff that they did on the self-titled record when they had the guy from Madrugada do Phoenix Rising or whatever the song is called. There's a couple of great songs on there, but then the Deep Calleth Upon Deep came out, and it just sort of missed the boat for me on every level. And I will say also, possibly my loathing of saxophone colored my view of the rest of the record.
It does it, man.
Because when I heard that, it was like, fuck this. I can't listen to this crap any longer.
I feel like it's like, women forget the pain of pregnancy. I've heard that. So, because if they didn't, they would never have multiple children. I feel like every time I put the record on, I forget about that part. And then it comes on and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Why did they do this? But yes.
You pointed out another good one, by the way, like an example of shitty saxophone. Napalm Death is a band I adore. And when they use that John Zorn saxophone on Smear Campaign, it's so jarring when you hear it the first time. It's like,
I know.
I was almost like, I'm going to have to just naturally skip this track because it will ruin the entire experience for me. I cannot listen to this bullshit.
Yep. Nope. I'm with you on that. I don't know. I just can't. I can't stomach it. I try, and I know it's become like a real in vogue thing to do, but no. That I can, of all things, I can assure you that will not happen on an Abhoria or Ashen Horde record.
Good.
No.
But yeah, as I said, Deep Calleth Upon Deep. I'm all for bands trying different things and doing new things, but for me, it missed the boat on every single level. And like I said, it starts with, to me, the production. I think the sound on that album is terrible.
Fair. Won't change my mind, but fair.
And so, well, the question is, how did you get past the saxophone? Like, what's the merit to the record that helps you see past that pimple on the on the discography of a great black metal band?
It's just funny because I had not considered it. I guess because I just dug it, I didn't consider how someone wouldn't be on that piece. So
Yeah,
I have not thought deeply about or deep. I was going to try to make some silly joke about deep call upon deep. Not deeply about it, but now I'm actually going to, after this, I think I will go listen to it again and try to do it very objectively from like, okay, I dig this record. Let me listen to it from someone that doesn't. Let me see if I can figure out why. I think that's going to be a
if
task.
you can figure out where the hate comes from.
Yeah, beyond the cover art, which I do despise also. And I know Munch is like very famous. I thought the cover was terrible, but that's...
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I thought the cover art was poor as well. And I also thought one of the things that was such a miss on the record is Frost is such an incredible drummer, and it almost seemed like they were consciously muffling him on that album. Rather than letting him do what he does very, very well, it just feels like it's. It feels like that, was it Mike Fraser that produced the record? I can't remember the guy's surname. I know his first name is Mike.
Yeah, I can't remember that either.
But it feels like, it almost felt like he kept on saying, "Oh no, just stay off the double bass, or don't add in that extra fill." It just sounded so weak in comparison to what I know the guy can do. And I don't expect him to be, going crazy all the time because the music doesn't necessarily call for it. But if I think about Now Diabolical, and if I think about the self-titled record, he still, he managed to sound restrained, but still kind of throw in the Frost swagger, as I would call it, like, whether it's a double bass roll at the right time, or whether it's if it's a fill that he's playing that just works, just is timed very well. He's very good at that because he's a very intuitive drummer, I think. Yep. And yeah, it was like, I'm kind of going on a conscious train of thought here, but I think it's like, I think his intuition was taken away on Deep Calleth Upon Deep, and that's also part of what puts me off it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd be curious to know, too, if that was a conscious decision on his part or if it was something they really encouraged him to, like, no, do less. And it's funny you say that, coupled, though, with the drum production, which I did not love. It's very cardboard boxy. Also, I think diminishes kind of the impact of what he's playing. So those things together, you're right. From a drumming perspective, he doesn't have a lot of personality on that record, which is
a great example of where he's restrained, but he still sounds like Frost. The second track on Volcano, Angst Ridden, there's that opening lyric, born into a field of flowers to slowly wilt away. And then he starts like hitting the cymbals in like almost like a kind of rock and roll disco kind of way, and then he starts throwing in the double bass as well. But it's like layer upon layer of stuff, and it just builds this intensity from kind of almost like a slightly relaxed position, and it just makes the song so fucking cool. But yeah, like I said, just none of that on Deep Calleth Upon Deep. So I'll ask you this question because you clearly, you've hinted at it a few times, and there's no way a man owns 10,000 CDs without being, rather obsessive when it comes to music. So where did the musical journey begin for you? Like and not just metal, I'm curious generally, where to begin, who introduced it into your life? Do you have parents that were, into music heavily? Where does this come from?
Yep. Nope. All credit goes to my parents. So while neither of them were really pursued music, they're both big music fans and big rock fans. So when I was a little kid, and I'm talking little like my Fisher-Price record player, I had my Sesame Street records, I had all that stuff. But I also would get my parents' record collection. So I, was listening to the Beatles and Queen and the Police and things like that they were into, and, all sorts of 70s stuff. So growing up, music was always being played in the house. I can't listen to Steely Dan without thinking of like Sunday morning, my dad putting that on to go do whatever he was going to do. AC/DC, my dad's favorite band is AC/DC. So a lot of AC/DC in the house. My mom was really into things like, Journey and, what else was she? Linda Ronstadt, things like that. But there was
Fleetwood Mac. Most parents from that. Like I was about to say, there's I don't know a single human being who is of my generation whose parents didn't own a copy of Rumors.
Oh,
Like, it doesn't
absolutely
exist.
not. Impossible to find. Yeah, unless they were Amish or something. Um, so yeah, all that was listened to, and my parents actually had seen their first date was a Uriah Heep concert. They had seen Kiss in like 1975 when they're in Houston. So that was always around, and so that's what I was into. And then the first band beyond Queen, I remember getting into Queen because I had the single for Another One Bites the Dust and Don't Try Suicide, which was like I was probably 4 or 5, and that was my favorite thing to listen to. Um, but the band I really remember kind of getting into myself at that age was the Stray Cats. Something about the Pompadours, I don't know, whatever, it really appealed to me. So we had Built for Speed, and I listened to that endlessly. So that kind of like started it. I also, though, on both sides, my mom and dad each had one brother who, one was a musician, played bass. He was in the prog scene in the 70s. I think they did shows with Kansas and all that kind of bands, Flash, things like that. And then my other uncle was into like extreme weird stuff, the Plasmatics, trying to think some other, I mean, Red Hot Chili Peppers before they were a thing, that kind of stuff. So they were constantly filtering that to me. So every birthday I would get tapes of whatever they were into. And so, from the time I was probably 5 or 6, a lot of it was Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and stuff and Poison, which is all.
I see Def Leppard in the background over there.
Oh yeah, you've spotted that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm an unabashed fan of Def Leppard. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah, we can talk about it.
There's some great songs on High and Dry and on Pyromaniac and on Hysteria.
Agreed. I mean, I think I absolutely put High and Dry as probably one of my top 10 albums of all time, if not top 3. I think it is perfection.
That's a big shout, but it's a good record. And one I listened to when I was a young blood as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're fantastic. I mean, I don't love the new stuff the same way I love the old. I still will buy it and typically be disappointed, but luckily they still put on a good show. So anyway, so that was all that. And then the other big turning point in my life, I guess, from the early life I mentioned earlier, was my dad had recorded Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. They showed it on like this late movie matinee thing, and he taped it because he was like, oh yeah, Kiss, this will be fun. And my brother and I discovered that, and that was life-changing and game-changing for me because, again, not only were they larger than life and it was this super exciting, weird thing, but the music was also really cool and fun and catchy. And so kind of went from there. And, actually, I get into one other thing. I know there's all these aspects coming together. I have to give a lot of credit to a babysitter I had when I was a kid who was into the hair metal scene. So every time she'd come over, she would bring her favorite thing, Rat, Wasp, White Lion, whatever she was into, and we would just listen to that and run around the house and sing songs. And so I got exposed to a lot of cool stuff that way. So yeah, I was one of the very, very few kids at my elementary school that had long hair, would wear Kiss t-shirts, live in that thing. And, I was really fortunate. My parents took me to see Kiss in 1990 during the Hot in the Shade tour. That was my first like proper concert. And yeah, so having a family that was into it and supportive of it really made a big difference.
Yeah. So I had a family that was absolutely not supportive of it, but I went down that road anyway. I was kind of the same as you. I think it's partly also why I became a hi-fi nut later on in my life. My dad had a really nice hi-fi, nothing like by today's standards, nothing special, but I thought at the time it was the most incredible thing ever. And before I could barely walk. My mom has photos of it and has shown me, they used to have to tie the door to the hi-fi rack because it was one of those old hi-fi racks that had the kind of old door that could kind of that sealed all the components. They'd have to tie that down so that I don't open it. I would figure out a way around it, and I would listen to A Night at the Opera by Queen.
Yep.
And I would listen to Beatles records. I would listen to Rumors, and various things like that. And then the first song I remember that really kind of spoke to me as a piece of music where it was something that I was sort of independently discovered, and I just was blown away by, was a song called Shake the Disease by Depeche Mode. And then the next one was I Wanna Rock by Twisted Sister.
Oh yes, that was a big one for me too.
And it was just like, I remember when I heard I Wanna Rock, there was it was something about the guitars and something about the energy. It just felt to me like I'd found like an essential part of my being, and that had been lost. And I was like, I've discovered this. This is part of me. I couldn't figure out what it, where it fit in yet, why I was so drawn to it. Obviously, my parents hated it. They were really devout Christians and still are. Wow. So, that kind of music is not music you listen to. I didn't know anyone that was into that either. So, the kids that I was growing up with were, themselves probably all fundamentalist Christians. So, that sort of made you an immediate outcast. And then I heard Thunderstruck by AC/DC when I was 10 years old. And it was like, oh my God, like this is the future. Like I again, it was like that exact same feeling that I had with Twisted Sister, but 10 times more. And then it just, kind of compounded from there. I remember discovering Guns N' Roses, discovering Metallica, hearing Judas Priest's Painkiller for the first time. Wasp was a really, really big one for me because I never liked like any of the kind of sweet, cutesy stuff. I didn't like anything with major chords, none of that sort of thing. So with the hair metal stuff, the band I kept getting drawn to was Wasp because they always had that edge to them. And like Chris Holmes' guitaring, especially on those early records, has a real nastiness to it, like a gnarly, horrible street feeling to it. And it kind of went from there, metastasized into Pantera, Slayer, and then, death metal, and then black metal. And black metal was the thing where, that wasn't just like a part of my being. It felt like my whole being came alive. Like when the first real kind of game changer for me was hearing Battles in the North. And it was like, I didn't even know that I was listening to Immortal. I'd seen a review of a record called Battles in the North that Phil Anselmo was saying was great. And when I heard the song, it was on for 3 seconds. I swear to you, as surely as I'm sitting here today, I just knew I'm listening to Battles in the North. It's like, yeah, I'm this mythical record that has been spoken of, Battles in the North. This is exactly what I'm busy listening to right now. So where did that shift into extreme music then start for you? Because you sound like you kind of came from a similar sort of background to me.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, so there were moments of it, hints of it, I guess, when I was in like junior high with things like Anthrax. I think if I remember, I got into them seeing the Got the Time video. I think Headbangers Ball was actually pretty useful for me. We didn't have cable, so I would have to watch it at friends' houses or tape it, but I did discover quite a bit that way. That was a little bit more heavy, Danzig, things like that. But I actually have to credit, it was in high school, a buddy of mine named Jordan, we're still friends. He's actually the vocalist and bassist for a band called Weaponizer, put an album out on 20 Bucks Spin a couple of years back. He and I had a mutual friend in high school. We had not actually met, but people kept saying, you got to meet this Jordan guy. He's into the same kind of stuff you are. They just knew I liked metal. And I think at this time, again, it was a little more tame, but they knew I was that guy. I had long hair. So they got to meet this guy, And finally, we ended up in a class together. I think it was chemistry. And he walked in with a Sam Haines shirt. And I was like, oh, wow, I've never seen that at school before. So, we kind of chatted about it. And he had gotten into that scene. So he really introduced me to things like Sepultura and, what else was it? Oh, Halloween. I had not really gotten into the power metal scene at that point. He was really into old Megadeth that I had not spent much time on. I knew Symphony of Destruction and everything, but so he got me into that, and then the two of us got into death metal kind of at the same time because we both were getting into that, and so then we kind of fell into it and started getting into Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and Napalm and all this stuff that was around at the time. I'm thinking what else we were listening to, Desultory, things like that. And
the death metal record that did it for me, sorry to interrupt you, you kind of got my gears spinning now, was The End Complete by Obituary. Yes, I remember hearing that opening riff of and it was like, oh my God, this is fucking incredible.
So Obituary too, such a unique in the death metal scene. John Tardy's vocals are just so different. And I remember that too, like, whoa, even in that scene, like this is unique.
Yeah, yeah.
But that kind of got me into death metal, and then that just progressed into black metal. I mean, I've told this story in interviews before, but the thing I really remember is I got an Osmos Records sampler, probably when I was buying some other death metal record, and it had Immortal on it, and it had Enslaved, and a bunch of stuff on it. And that was it. And I wish I could remember what Immortal track was on there. I don't have it in front of me.
I think that would have probably have been something off of Pure Holocaust.
I actually think it was from Blizzard Beast. I think it was a little later.
Okay.
The worst produced black metal record in history. No, arguably. But
I was about to say, no worse than Deep Call at the Von Deep.
Oh,
I remember getting Blizzard Beast and loving it. I really liked the record when it came out.
The songs
I know,
awesome. I just think the sound is terrible. Yeah, but I think the first Immortal record I got was Battles in the North. So I'm with you on that. And that opening, that weird backwards part right before he starts, it's just so like smacks you in the face. Like,
it's just, I mean, the record's barbaric. I mean, there's nothing beautiful to it. There's no relent. There's no nothing. I mean, even when the record slows down right at the end, you know, it's the same vibe. It's just destruction. Osmos used to have the coolest like banner when they did ads. I used to get the Nuclear Blast mail order catalogs, and they, you know, various labels or smaller labels would advertise in there. And Osmos used to have the coolest banner ads, the coolest ads generally, but the banner at the top of the ad would read, "Not for pussies."
Yep.
It was, again, it's such a fucking moronic thing to say, but it was,
what a way to appeal to like impressionable metal kids.
I was just about to say, like, for a 16-year-old whose, you know, whole mantra is rebellion and fuck the world, it's like, to see that is just brilliant. You know, like before it was full Anselmo, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey man, there's a whole different level of rebellion to be indulged in, and to you know, push forth as your own ideas in this scene.
Yep. Yeah, no, it was just fascinating to be like, because you're right. There's this limit you'd hit with thrash, like this is it. And you're like, how could there be anything more brutal and crazy than this? And you're like, well, wait a sec. Yeah, other thing, you know, and it just kept kind of going. But yeah, for you, it was Battles. For me, the album that I think was really the big game changer for me would be Eld by Enslaved. That was the one that I remember breaking. A lot of that happened around the same time. I got that in Frost. I got Anthems to the Walking at Dusk, and you know, all those came at the same time. But it was Eld that I remember as the one that really, for me, was like, holy shit, this is it.
So I actually, interesting you mentioned Anthems to the Welcome at Dusk, because one thing I pointed out in my review of Abhoria was I could hear there was something about the riffing that reminded me in a great way of The Wretched End. And you know what I've always said about Emperor is I think the worst possible thing that happened to Emperor, because I know I'm alone in this, but I don't like Prometheus. And
I cannot get through it. To this
no,
day.
It's when I first heard it, I actually went. I had like my setup wasn't very good in my room. I was listening to the CD on my computer, and I remember getting off my bunk bed and like taking the CD out. Like, is this actually Emperor that I'm listening to? It's like, and the reason why is I think that Zamoth's his love of death metal and his love of aggressive music always tempered a lot of Ihsahn's more progressive overindulgence, I would say. And when that went away, when he didn't have that juxtaposition against that, you know, you got Prometheus and all of the Ihsahn solo records, which I also think, with the exception of Angel, I think is terrible.
Oh, okay, that's funny, because I'm sorry to interject here, but I have to say I don't like Prometheus. We'll keep talking about that, but I think Ihsahn's solo stuff are like perfection. As far as I'm concerned, he's like the greatest musician on the planet right now, beyond maybe like Devin Townsend. Like, so it's funny you think it, because
oh, dude, okay, so
I love all his solo stuff.
I'm gonna blow your mind with Devin Townsend. So listen to this. I was a big fan of Strapping Young Lad.
Yep.
I've liked on and off some of the other stuff, but I'm not as big of a fan. So on last week's episode, I made a joke about I have like a news segment at the end of the podcast, and where I'll listen to recently, particularly, I'll listen to music and kind of react to it. And I was playing the stunning new single by Ted Nugent, American Campfire.
I haven't even. I don't think I could submit myself to that, but
well, it's I mean, it's as abysmal as you think. Now, a very good friend of mine, Evan Hopper of a band called Quell, pointed out to me that Uncle Ted sounds an awful lot like Devin Townsend nowadays.
Really?
I
Okay.
shit you not, dude. If you listen to American Campfire and you go back and you listen to Devin Townsend, you're never going to be able to unhear it. You're like, why does Devin now remind me of Ted Nugent and vice versa?
Okay, I'm very afraid, but also very tempted.
Well, that new Ted Nugent single, if you heard that on an episode of South Park, you would go, "Fuck, that's hysterical." Those guys are brilliant. How do they do it week in and week out? I mean, there's like on the music video, there's just these random clips. One of them is like somebody barbecuing meat. Another clip is of him strumming to this group with this random couple in his living room. Oh god, it's so fucking bad. And I mean, the lyrics are equally bad. It's like, pull up a stump and I'll buy you a beer.
Oh, that's poetry. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And he gets on people for taking drugs and writing lyrics. That's pretty wow.
Well, this was kind of my thing, right? So I'd been talking a lot about the Neil Young, Joe Rogan controversy, and I said, and the headline on Blabbermouth was, Ted Nugent calls Neil Young a punk for, he was talking a lot of shit, and I was like, look, Neil Young might be a punk, and I don't agree with what he's done with Spotify, but when it comes to music, I'm sorry, but Keep On Rocking in the Free World, Old Man, Down by the River. I mean, Ted Nugent has not come within, not even sniffing distance, not even fucking. It's not even the same sport when it comes. I don't care how much people like Cat Scratch Fever or anything like that. When it comes to music, unfortunately, Neil Young has him bested by a dizzying margin.
Yes, agreed.
So what at what point did you decide it was time to pick up a guitar and kind of get this musical passion of yours turned into a project of your own? And by the way, having now really gotten into ASHEN HORDE, phenomenal stuff, like really good. And like I could hear, because it was I hadn't really listened to ASHEN HORDE prior to Abhoria, but I can hear now where the two connect. But I can also obviously hear, what you were trying to achieve on both. But again, top-notch work, I think, on both records. But I've really enjoyed these ASHEN HORDE albums. It's something that's been really fun to kind of dig into in the last couple of weeks.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and I think too, they're moving further from each other. I think I have, for Abhoria in particular, a more firm vision for the second album, which we incidentally just started recording. And third, like where that's going versus where ASHEN HORDE's going. So I think they probably do have some similarities and some other stuff, but they are drifting. But yeah, I had wanted to play a long time, probably from that moment I saw Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. But my desire to be able to play and my willingness to practice were very, very far apart. For a very long time. I tried lessons, we had an acoustic guitar I tried, but my impatience, I just didn't have any interest in that. I loved everything about music and I wanted to do it, but I didn't have that level of focus. And, every lesson I took too, the guys would focus on, okay, let's play hot cross buns. Okay, let's learn a blues scale. Let's do this thing. That meant nothing to me. I'm like, this isn't fun. This is work and it's stupid and it doesn't sound anything like Kiss, right? This is dumb. So it was actually when I was, I don't remember what age, somewhere in my teen years, I had met, a guy who I'm still friends with. He worked at a record store near me and played in some local bands. And he was like, I'll teach you to play. You tell me what you want to learn and I'll teach you the basics. And so the first thing I said, it was, great, I want to learn how to play Love Gun. That was my favorite Kiss song at that time. He's like, great, I'll teach you to play Love Gun. So he came over with his guitar. I had bought a cheap PV electric guitar and plugged in. And he kind of, got me through Love Gun. And it was like, for the first time ever, what I was doing sounded even this close to what I actually wanted. It wasn't just scales and shit. So that really put me on the right path. And so I started playing a bit more, but I feel like everything's coming back. Jordan, so the same guy I mentioned earlier that I met, he was a bass player and was already a great bass player. He had a band back when he lived in Minneapolis. And so once we started to get to know each other, it was like, oh, well, we should probably start a band, and I sucked and he didn't. And I was like, well, I can't be the guy that sucks in this cool new band that we are formulating. So that was what really pushed me to start actually practicing and learning, and totally self-taught at that point. But it was my own, I don't know, ineptitude, or just feeling like I need to be as at least tolerable to this other guy who's can outplay me. And I just kind of went from there and forced myself to get better.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because ASHEN HORDE is a lot of those riffs. I think Abhoria is more straightforward, but some of the ASHEN HORDE stuff is super technical.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't know if it's this subconscious thing that I need to try to write music that's complicated, or I just get bored really quick, which I do. I have bad ADD with playing. I would struggle to play the same riff over and over again too much. So I just feel like, I'm constantly trying to push myself as a player. Nowhere near the tech death scene. I mean, all respect to those guys. I'm never going to play like that. I don't have a lot of tolerance for it as a fan, beyond being just wickedly impressed. But I do, I like to try to straddle like technical stuff. I feel like too, when you get into more technical stuff, you can just do things that sound a little bit more interesting. I love a sweet power chord when it hits you just the right way. That's great. But when I'm listening to stuff and writing stuff, I like to try to look for things that are a little bit different, just weird chord voicings, weird structures, things like that. So I think that kind of feeds into how I play.
And so if you think about music nowadays that's impressing you, I mean, I've just, as I said earlier, I've just done my best of 2021 wrap up, and I consciously waited until the new year to do it, because I knew there'd be stuff coming out all the way until the end of the year. But if you think about things now that really kind of inspires you and surprises, blows your mind, again, you've kind of been into this music probably for a similar amount of time to what I do, to what I've been. What stands out for you as highlights, or things that are your go-to listens right now?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like certainly over the years, I guess, I don't know if I'm busier or have less attention. I definitely don't seek out new stuff the way I used to. So I feel like I tend to cling more to things I'm already familiar with and what they're doing, but I do certainly take in recommendations. So in that regard, just saying, like, with the dearth of stuff that's out there, I'm not as exposed to a lot of it as probably other people are. So there's probably a lot of mind-blowing stuff I'm not even aware of. But I don't know, things I look for, like last year, the record that really got my attention, and it actually, it's funny, I had submitted my top for the year before I heard it, was Jason Bieler's Songs for the Apocalypse that came out last year. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No, not at all.
He was the guitar player for Saigon Kick back in the 90s. And he put out this solo record, and Devin Townsend's on it, Dave Ellefson's on it, a bunch of great people. And I don't even remember how it came into my purview, but I was like, okay, let's check this thing out. And I was not a Saigon Kick fan. I really didn't even know anything beyond Love Is on the Way. And I put it on, and it's like proggy and over the top and super heavy and really diverse, amazing vocals. And I think that was the best thing that came out in 2021. Using that as kind of the archetype, I tend to really go for stuff that is very, very, very varied. A lot of variety, a lot of mixing of genres. I mean, I think, to maybe to a lesser degree to what he's doing, I do certainly try to do that with ASHEN HORDE. I like to blend things. That's why in a lot of interviews I talked about the band The Wild Hearts, who are a UK band. That are pretty much unknown in the US, but I've been a fan forever for the same reason. Like, you can put on a Wild Hearts record and you're going to get some thrash bits, some radio pop, punk, rock, maybe even a country tinge here. I love that genre bending, mixing whatever goes into the pot thing. So that's what really appealed to me about the Jason Bieler record. The newest Monster Magnet record that came out, I thought was fantastic last year. There's a bunch of cover songs done kind of their style. I don't know. My tastes vary a lot. I listen to a lot of metal, listen to a lot of rock, a lot of punk. But yeah, definitely things that really tend to catch me are those that have a lot of variety. It's probably what appealed to me about Queen back in the early days too. And I'm certainly a sucker for a great chorus and a great melody. But
I was just about to say that. I mean, Queen are like they were one of the original true genre benders. I mean, they had. There was, if you could listen to A Night at the Opera, for example, and there was like really hard rock. There was, like very poppy, very accessible stuff. There was prog. There was things that are, really singer-songwriter, borderline, folk. It was just, it was so creatively free. And weirdly enough, I mean, I think that's why it's a classic record to this day. And you can tell it's older, or it's from a certain era, but I certainly don't think anyone could level the claim that it's aged badly.
No, and it's kind of one of those things about Queen that has always blown my mind a bit because of that. I feel like maybe that is why they became so successful, because of the diversity. There's something for everyone. But at the same time, I feel like someone making an album that weird, like any of their Sheer Heart Attack, Night at the Opera, whatever, these days would be like, what is this? This is a mishmash of nothing that sounds the same. I don't think they would get anywhere with it. So I feel like they're this weird anomaly that technically shouldn't have probably been as successful as they were, despite the brilliance. Because I feel like there's a lot of people really like consistency, and I don't want to knock anyone that's ever reviewed anything I've done in the, with ASHEN HORDE in the past, but there has been a thread in people that have not liked my music that a lot have said it would be great if you would just stick to a genre, make it death metal, make it black metal, just be a thing. And I kind of wear that as a badge of honor when they don't like it for that reason. I'm like, well, no, this is the whole purpose for what I'm trying to do, is I don't want to be that. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. I love AC/DC. I love that I can put on that or Dark Throne or whatever and know exactly what I'm getting. And that's great. But for me, I don't like doing that. So I think it's funny, though. I do feel like there's a bit more, people don't seem to like that as much as they used to. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's something I feel.
I think it depends on who you speak to. So I go back to, and I know offline I was talking about Gold as well, with the infamous interview where he sips his wine and he goes Satan. But he said something on that interview that has always stuck with me, and I kind of feel like it's permeated through extreme music since. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I remember when it was asked a question, and I can't remember if it was that interview or a different interview, but it was asked a question as to what does black metal represent to you, and he said freedom. And I've kind of seen a lot of that creative freedom deployed in black metal in the last 5 years, 6 years, and I think that's what's made the record, what's made the genre as exciting as it is. Is this? You listen to him as an example. Goldsveard is the first, the first Goldsveard record and this EP that's come out. He essentially created a black metal record without a single scream. I mean, it's like, it's mind blowing that he could do something that's so distinctly black metal, but there's not if you just took it down to zeros and ones, it wouldn't be defined as black metal, but you can listen to it and if you're a fan, it's black metal. And then you look at somebody like Mike Hill from Tombs. There's so much different stuff that goes into what he does, whether it's punk, whether it's hardcore, whether it's death metal, there's lots of black metal. There's a very strong Celtic Frost influence there. There's a very strong Samhain, like Danzig kind of influence there, but it all morphs into this just phenomenal, extreme, world that envelops you when you listen to it. And, I can name one after the other band, Voices, Funeral Mist, the bands that I really like, the Amenta. So I hear what you're saying, because I see that in a lot of reviews as well, and I've just never been able to understand why people would want to limit themselves. Like, just make what feels authentic and right to you at the time. My favorite song of last year was done by a band that's very heavy, but it's a song that's a total departure for them. It's just a completely mellow, very dark, like very acoustic heavy track, but it just fits in so well with the record. And it just encapsulates every single thing that record is about. But it's again, take it down to zeros and ones, or describing the song on a piece of paper, and you go, what the fuck is this?
Yep. Yeah. As a musician, I feel like that's really what it's all about, is that freedom. And, someone said this to me years ago when because I was lamenting the the poor sales of one of my albums, because, it's a niche genre, but was saying that, well, when money is not a factor, when it's not your life, like I had to go through this too. When I was a kid, it was like, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to do this. This is going to be my life. And you hit a point where you realize, like, the odds of that happening are virtually non-existent, especially if you want to play this kind of music. But, he made the comment that when it's not part of your life, you have no reason to ever compromise what you're doing. And so that's kind of how my approach is like, yeah, when you're writing music, you do whatever the hell you want, and it should be the thing you want to do. So I do find it funny when people are like, it'd be great if this were just like more consistently this, or fit more into this genre tag or whatever. Not just about me, about anything. So I've always found that a little bit amusing. Like, no, shouldn't it be whatever the person wants to do? If you don't like it, that's fine. But
and I think being in the position you're in is creatively freeing as well, no? Because you have,
absolutely,
I mean, you've got a career, you make money, you don't need you don't need to live paycheck to paycheck off or royalty check to royalty check, I should say. Yeah. Or whatever pittance Spotify is going to toss at you, for your streams. You can just, music, your music to you can be a completely personal expression, and can be one that, as you say, there's zero compromise on. You do exactly what you want to do, and you don't have to consider anything else.
Yep. It's exactly, the albums you hear are exactly the albums I want to put out, at least within the limits of my abilities and everything else. But yeah, and so that's the thing. But not to say that when good reviews come in, I love it. If other people are into it, that's a bonus. That's awesome. Yeah. But I'm happy to be in a position where I'm not writing songs to please the reviewers or please the audience or whatever. Like, I'm not thinking, what is it they're going to want here? Because, I feel like you get caught. And I remember Dave Mustaine talking about that in the 90s when he was especially competing with Metallica's Black Album. And it's like, every record they did from Cryptic Writings and Risk and stuff was like, how can we basically create the album that everyone will love? And it's like, oh man, I hope I'm never in a position to do that, because I feel like that's just so crippling to, trying to be artistic and interesting.
Well, also, I mean, I think Cryptic Writings and Risk and those records were terrible, absolutely terrible. And part of the reason why they were terrible is because you could hear how hard they were trying to make a record that more people would get into than would get into Load or would get into the Black Album, whatever they were competing against at the time. And the record that they made that I think is their best by far is Rust in Peace, which I think there was a degree of competition there as well. But it sounds, part of the reason I like it most is because it sounds like the most unabashedly, nakedly Dave Mustaine creative expression that he ever put on record, before or since.
So yeah, I feel like he was trying to make the best record he could, rather than the best record for everyone else.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why, in my view, Countdown to Extinction was such a massive letdown, because I remember hearing being so in love with Rust in Peace. And then, I think about a year after I discovered that record, Countdown to Extinction came out, and I listened to it and I was like,
yeah,
this fucking sucks.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, I think about all of them. I think all 4, because I think Euthanasia has moments. I think Addicted to Chaos is amazing. I think I actually really like Trust off Cryptic Writings. I really actually like some of the songs on Risk in kind of an absolute basis. Like, were they not Megadeth songs? They're good songs, but you could tell exactly what he was trying to do. It's like, yeah, it's just too forced.
The thing also for me, when those records came out, I'd already moved on to stuff like Pantera. Like Pantera, I'd say, was another big game changer for me. And it was discovering, I heard Walk and I really liked that. And then I got Vulgar Display of Power. And I remember, for some reason, probably for about 6 months, all I did was just listen to the first side of the record. I never switched to the second side. And one day I think I had one of those tape decks that just reversed itself, and it reversed itself and Rise, No Good, Live in a Hole, Regular People, and then By Demons Be Driven. And I was like, oh my God, this is fucking genius. Like, how have I ignored this for so long? That band to me it kind of broke down a lot of barriers in my own mind, because I remember being into Metallica and hearing stuff like Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel, and to me it just sounded like a racket, and I was like, oh, this is a load of shit. Like, I often tell people now when I talk to them about my music, I'm like, look, I completely get that you think what I listen to is crap, because when I was into things like Metallica, I used to hear this music and think, what a load of fucking noise. It's just complete nonsense. And then just one day just clicks. And I think Pantera was one of the bands that helped it click.
It's funny because I remember sitting back in the day with some friends listening to Cannibal or something, and being like, wouldn't it be weird if at some point we could understand what they were saying? And I remember actually hitting that moment, and it's not every band, but where you could like discern the growls. But yeah, there's something else you said there, which is funny. I get that a lot. I have a lot of people I work with and know in life that are not metal people. And I love the fact that they want to be supportive. And they're like, "Oh, I'd love to listen to your band." And I'm like, "No, you don't. You're going to hate it. You're not going to get it, and that's fine." Like,
Yeah.
I totally accept that. Like, no. And I appreciate it. But yeah, it's always kind of like, no, I really want to check it out. I like stuff. Like, no, you don't. Trust me.
I was gonna ask you, do people around the office know about the music you make? Have they heard it?
They do. Yes. I will say I don't advertise or broadcast it, mostly because I know most people don't. It's not their thing, and I'm not the guy that needs to be out there constantly like marketing myself to people that aren't into it. But I did, like, I haven't been in the office for 2 years, of course, but on my desk I had the last two ASHEN HORDE 12 inches like up on display on my desk. There are various offices around. You can wander around and find ASHEN HORDE stickers. People have shirts supporting. So it's not a secret, but at the same time, I don't broadcast it unless someone wants to know.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same with my stuff. I remember when I first got into corporate life, I tried to tone it down an awful lot. And then one of my bosses actually had a long conversation with me the day I left that particular company, and he said to me, like, you're at your best when the volume on your personality is turned up. It's like, don't try and hide it, just lean into who you are. Yep. And that had a very big impact on me. So after that, I was like, I'm not obnoxious about it, but people know what I'm into and they know what I'm down with. Yes, but I do when anybody is like, "Oh, you do a podcast," I was like, "Yeah, whatever you do, don't listen to it because you're not gonna like it."
It's like, you know me, you don't need to know this. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You're not going to enjoy it. So, and normally that's why I have the intro songs because it's like anyone who happens to discover this from work, they're probably put off by the first 30 seconds. So.
Like, I don't need that. Yeah. So it's funny. I do that. So yeah, I don't broadcast it beyond. It is funny though. Like there's no reason in hiding that aspect of me. So it's pretty well known now. Again, I have long hair that gives it away pretty quick. But like, in WebEx, when my name pops up, I've got the horns icon next to my name and stuff. So it's like, it's there. It's not a secret.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, I find, I'd be interested to get your take on this. So I find as I've grown up in the scene, there are an awful lot of people, you kind of hinted at them earlier, actually. There's an awful lot of people who look the part. They've got like face tattoos and their hair is blue and like all sorts of shit. But I feel like a lot of those people they're quite tragic, actually. They're lonely, outcast folks who, they will look, I mean, not all of them, but many of them were looking for a place where they could belong because they couldn't find anywhere else. And metal was kind of the last resort for them. And very often what I find is as I've bumped into people like that years later, then they've moved on to something else. 4 or 5 years in, they're either into techno or they've moved on to some sort of other scene where they've gained a degree of acceptance. But metal's never been in their blood the way that it's in. The way that I like I said earlier on, it's like when you hear it the first time, it's like you discover part of your being that was missing.
Yes.
And I definitely feel like there's kind of two distinct types of metal fans. There's the ones that were born for this, and there's the ones that fell into it and they're not going to be around forever. And very often they're the ones that are the most loud and the most like brash about like Slipknot is my band, and
oh my god, yes,
they weep when Corey Taylor starts doing starts singing.
Yes.
But like I said, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow, and it's not me being an elitist. I'm happy for them if they find a place where they feel accepted. Great. I personally think metal is a very accepting scene, regardless of what people say. I've never once seen anything, and I've been to a good 700-800 shows. I've never once seen anything at a metal show where I thought, man, this is really fucked up. It's a very, like I say, it's a very accepting scene. But there's, as I said, not to labor the point, but there's definitely a distinction. And I think folks that are born for it, I think people respect that because there's more to them than just, they're not defined by, loving Slayer.
Right,
as I think a lot of other folks sometimes can come across as being.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's very true. And I feel like, yeah, I'm certainly a metal guy. It's a big part of me. I mean, probably 95% of my wardrobe are metal shirts. That's what I wear every day. It's who I am. But that's not the only aspect of my life. Like, I can also have a corporate job. I can go out to dinner with non-metal friends and talk for 2 hours without bringing it up and not be like the weird guy that can't talk about anything else. And yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe because it is so accepting, and that's great. I love to think of it as that. People find it as kind of a welcoming environment when they don't know where else to go. But you're right, they move on. And it's always weird to me when I meet someone who's like, oh yeah, I used to listen to a lot of that. And like, used to? Like, sure, styles and stuff change over the years, and it's not that you have to be like a diehard with everything, but I kind of feel like it was also like with an age thing. Like, yeah, when I was younger, I listened to that. It's like, well, why don't you now? Do you not like it? Or is it like socially you feel like you can't? I feel like, yeah, if you're in it, you're just in it. And I love it. And it's not about the image. It's not about any of that. It's about the music. And that's what it all comes down to, right? I like, if I cut my hair off and wore polos every day, I would still be listening to the same stuff. I would be sad, but I would be doing that.
Have you had long hair all your life?
Mostly. I cut it for a while, tried a few different things, didn't really like it, and then grew it out again. Though I have to
admit, you're fortunate to not be thinning out like I am.
No, I have, knock on wood, I have not. But I have to admit, I keep it in a man bun most days just because it's easier.
Yeah. No, I had long hair. As many folks that I know do. We were not allowed to grow our hair when we were at school. So I mean, like, you got your ass kicked if you had long hair. And when I say, I grew up in a school that had corporal punishment. So
yes,
so there was no long hair. So you grew your hair after school, but yeah, I think just before I turned 21, I was like, this has to go. And, I mean, I think after about 10 years after that, looking at my hair, there was no hope of it returning unless I wanted to look like Devin Townsend. So,
oh yes, hey,
like Scarlet era Devin Townsend. So, listen, my brother, thank you so much for your time. What an absolute pleasure talking to you and reminiscing about all these great things. And once again, congratulations on a phenomenal record. And like I said, I'm glad I discovered it because it's also helped me discover ASHEN HORDE, which I love. So I hope to hear a lot more from you and about you in the future. And you said you're busy with a second Abhoria record as we speak.
We are indeed. It may seem sudden since this one came out, but there were a lot of delays in getting this record out. So it's actually been around for a while. So yeah, songs are written. We start tracking drums in just about a month. I've already started recording guitars. We're going to do so, hoping to have it kind of wrapped up. But then who knows? It'll be another year before it comes out probably. But yes, things are moving. I'm really excited about it. It's in the same vein, but I think there's a lot more variety on this one. It's not as relenting as the first one. And I know I don't mean to criticize our album. I'm really pleased with it. But you in particular called out Sunless being kind of different. There's a lot more moments like that where from one song to another, I think they're more unique within the album. There's more variety. So,
well, Sunless for me was, I mean, I liked the rest of the record, but like I said in the review, Sunless to me was the peak because like, I mean, yeah, the breaks are off creatively. The band is just throwing every single thing that they love into something, but it just all works together as a whole very, very well. And it's a phenomenal song. Absolutely fantastic.
So yeah, so hopefully you'll find more things like, that, but of course, plenty of blast beats and craziness too, because that's what we do.
Awesome. All right, dude. Well, listen, like I said, thank you so much for your time. I hope I'm going to catch up with you again at some point down the road.
And we got an ASHEN HORDE record coming out later this year. We'll talk again.
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. We'll definitely do this again. Awesome. All right, dude. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Self-importance projected outward.
Thank you so much to Trevor for coming on the podcast. Just a guy I struck it off with instantly, and I hope he's going to be back on the podcast at some point soon. Top-notch dude. You just listened to the first track off the Abhoria debut. It's a song called False Idols. It is available on Prosthetic Records right now. I have spoken about the record yet, so I assume that all of you have gone out in mass and purchased it off Bandcamp, and let Trevor and the rest of the band know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. But if you have not done so yet, do so straight away. And then also make sure that you check out Trevor's other band, ASHEN HORDE, which is fucking brilliant. It's a band I've kind of discovered because I had him on the podcast. So, yeah, great speaking to him. Great having him on. Hope you guys enjoyed that, because I certainly enjoyed having that chat. And like I said, less spicy than last week, but that's kind of the point of the podcast. I get people on, and as I've said before many, many times, I sort of feel out where the conversation's going to go, and wherever it goes, it goes. You know, whether we talk about music, whether we talk about culture, politics, Borno, wherever and whatever the mood strikes us to do. Anyway, let's talk now about the new Crowbar record, Zero and Below. It is the 12th in the Crowbar canon. It dropped on the 4th of March, so this past Friday, on MNRK Heavy. I will say right at the top of this conversation, and I make no bones about it, and if you've listened to this podcast for any period of time, you will know I'm a fucking huge fan of Crowbar. I mean, to a point where, you know, it's actually hard for me to be in any way objective when they release anything new, because I know I'm going to like it. And I've also been a fan of this band for a very, very long time. I discovered them, as probably many people did, when they were brought onto Beavis and Butthead for those two dorks to make fun of. And whilst everyone was sitting there, or, you know, many of my idiot friends at the time were sitting there, and I say idiot friends, I mean former idiot friends, were sitting there making fun of how fat the guys are and blah, blah, blah. I just thought that the song that was on the Beavis and Butthead episode, Broken Glass, was fucking brilliant. And I got into the band based on that. Since then, I would say my favorite records by the band remains Oddfellows Rest, and I'm also a massive fan of Symmetry in Black. A record which probably wasn't quite as well received as some of their others, but I liked it because it had a lot of variety, and it had a lot of different stuff that the band hadn't necessarily done, but while still kind of sticking to that that Crowbar formula, you know, which, you know, if you don't know, frankly, you should know, but, you know, it's that kind of bluesy, sludgy, doomy, Motorhead typo-negative mashup that they do. And that they do inimitably. And, you know, I'd say as a side note, and this is more really a way for me to segue into something else I wanted to talk about very quickly. I feel like in some ways Kirk is like the Mark Lanegan of the metal scene, particularly the extremer metal scene. And as I say that, shout out to Mark Lanegan. You know, the news of him passing away broke about 2 weeks ago. And it's really super sad. I'm a massive fan of Mark Lanegan. His music has meant an extraordinary amount to me personally. You know, has probably, I'm not ashamed to say, shepherded me through some fucking hard times. And I'm just grateful for the fact that I got to see him in an incredible setting. I saw him at the chapel at University of London Union. And it was a mostly unplugged show. So it really allowed his voice to come out. And again, I will absolutely not shy away from the fact that it was probably one of the only shows where I more or less had a lump in my throat from the start of that gig to the very end. So rest in peace, Mark Lanegan, Dark Mark as he was called. You will be missed, but the legacy that he leaves behind is absolutely exceptional. Now, having said that, saying that Kirk of Crowbar is the Mark Lanegan of metal is probably a fucking enormous compliment. You know, one of the biggest I could possibly give him. But I think it's true. And I think that where The Serpent Only Lies, the last Crowbar record, maybe suffered a little bit from being or leaning in a bit too heavily into the kind of thrashy side of Crowbar's sound, I think Zero and Below pulls back and gets the balance right again. So there are fast songs, but there's also loads of slower stuff. Songs that maybe have a bit more of a focus on melody, a bit more of a focus on kind of that crushing bluesy doom, you know, that has worked so well for them in the past and really what they kind of built their names on. So, you know, it leads to incredible tracks like Denial of the Truth, the last track, Zero and Below. Confess to Nothing, I think, is another one of those. I'm still not 100%. I can't quite piece song to song title yet. I do know Denial of the Truth is one of my favorite tracks on the record, and I will play it in just a second. But if you listen to this album from start to finish, I think what you definitely don't find is the record kind of being monotonous in any way, or feeling like it's relying maybe on one trick or two tricks, or being a little closed off in its creativity, if that makes sense. I think the record, from a production perspective, sounds absolutely extraordinary. Crowbar has never really put out a record that's poorly produced, but I feel like this one really stands out. The drums have this real pop to them. The guitars sound crunchy and crushing, and the bass, really stands out as well. I mean, this is, I think, the clearest that I've heard a bass guitar sound on a Crowbar record, and it just suits the band so well. I mean, you literally hear sort of every clang of the strings. It just sounds fucking phenomenal. I like the album cover. I like the whole vibe, the whole feel of the record. And then finally, as far as Kirk's voice is concerned, I would say Kirk is, much as we're at the late stage of their career, and I don't know how many more records he has in him, but his voice, in my view, has never ever sounded better. Never more emotive. Never more expressive. He just sounds absolutely fucking incredible. I wavered at using the word phenomenal because I did throw shade at somebody last week for the fact that I said they throw that around like the Democrats throw around welfare checks. But, let's be honest. I think phenomenal is probably the word that suits Crowbar best. Question is, if you're not a Crowbar fan, is this going to make you a Crowbar fan? The answer is very unlikely. There's no real change here from everything or anything that they've ever done before. But for my money, I can say this unequivocally. There are now 2 records that have come out in 2022 that have all but etched their spot on my top 20 of 2022. And it's going to take a fucking miracle for any other bands to unseat both Crowbar and the new Immolation from that list. Both, in my view, 10 out of 10 records, absolutely fantastic. As a Crowbar fan, I could not possibly want more from this album. So I said to you before, my favorite track on the record is Denial of the Truth. It's a slower one. Maybe one that, folks that come to this podcast purely to listen to me talk about black metal will be surprised that I'm playing, but, then again, if you go through what I tend to spend most of my time listening to, it's a pretty mixed bag. So you shouldn't be surprised. The song is fucking brilliant, no matter what kind of music you're into. And like I said, the track is Denial of the Truth. It's off Zero and Below. And if you don't know, you should know. This is Crowbar. Denial of the Truth by Crowbar, of the record Zero and Below. And yeah, if you like that record and you head over to their Bandcamp and you pick yourself out the CD or a T-shirt or whatever else, make sure you let Kirk and the rest of the band know that you heard about it on Into the Necrosphere. I would love to have that guy on the podcast. I have reached out to a couple of people to see if I can make it happen, but we'll have to see. I don't want to get too excited just yet. I'd say I'm about 50% of the way there. And I have met him before, as I've mentioned on previous episodes. He's a great guy, has fucking great stories. So yeah, I'm marshalling the troops. I thought about this a little while back. I don't think I'm ever going to call listeners of Into the Necrosphere the fans. But I'll if anything, I'll call you all the legions. I'm marshalling the legions. Let Kirk know that he needs to be on Into the Necrosphere. But yeah, I fucking love that record, if it wasn't abundantly clear already. All right, let's whisk ourselves away through the magic of the internets to Metal Storm. And the first headline is a pretty big one. Septicflesh announced Modern Primitive Full Length, another band who I would love to get on the podcast. And they'd kind of been doing a bit of a countdown on their social media about this single, which we will listen to in just a second. But it says here, symphonic death metal architects Septicflesh have announced details of their upcoming 11th full-length studio album entitled Modern Primitive. Due on May 20th, it consists of 9 new tracks. Coinciding with the announcement, the band have revealed the conceptual new video for the album's first single, Hierophant. Let's give this a listen, and let's find out if it's any good. Just while this intro is busy getting going, one thing I will definitely say about Septicflesh is they have refined the visual aspects of this band over the last decade or so of the band's existence. Yeah, what I was saying is they've really refined the visual aspects of this band, in a way that I love. I saw that live video of theirs where they recorded with the symphony and the choir. They looked awesome. The whole atmosphere that created, I thought was great. And then getting to this song, it's not anything that I wasn't expecting, but I love it. I think it sounds great. I like that opening riff. I love the hint of orchestra, and I may speak under correction about this, but as far as I know, I think at least one of the guys in this band has a PhD in music. So I mean, these dudes, when it comes to the way that they deploy orchestras, it's it kind of reminds me of the MMA phrase about there being levels to this game. There are some people that really kind of shoehorn in the orchestras, and it just, in my opinion, sounds like fucking horse shit. But not these men. They have especially in on their last record, they have a way of bringing it into where it accentuates the riffs and it accentuates the heaviness of the music rather than sounding like it's kind of making it a little bit toothless, if you know what I mean. But so far so good. Let's give it another couple of minutes, or another couple of seconds. Sorry, I'm not going to listen to the whole thing. For holy sense, baptized in sacred lies, stains, light, fire. I really like those clean vocals as well, which again, I'm not always a fan of clean vocals when it comes to death metal, but that sounds fucking cool. Taurus approaches. Go listen to the whole thing on YouTube. It looks to me like it's on the Nuclear Blast channel. But yeah, for sure, go listen to the whole thing. And as I said, I'm going to try and get these guys on the podcast as well. I have been trying actually for the best part of about a year. I would love to talk to Spiros or Sortires, but yeah, great track. And that album is going to be out, as I said, on May the 20th. May is starting to become a pretty busy month because the new Blut aus Nord is also due out in May. I don't believe there will be any Blut aus Nord press, but if there is, I'll certainly speak to the Deborah Morty guys and see if anything can be done for this podcast. But again, like I said, as far as I know, Blut aus Nord and press are a little bit like... I was trying to find something fucked up to say, but I've drawn a blank, in part because I'm distracted. Billy Bio streaming new single. Blackout is the new Billy Bio single from the next full-length offering, Leaders and Liars, which is set for March 25th, 2022 worldwide release. I'm not going to listen to the track because I've not really hugely liked the songs that Billy Bio has released. Billy Bio, of course, for those that don't know, Billy Grazi Harde of Biohazard. Biohazard, for me, are three great records, and that is the first three albums. Everything else after that is pretty shite. And actually, to be honest, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Billy's new stuff, it's a fucking damn stretch better than the last Biohazard record, which was absolute horse shit. But that being said, and I've spoken about it so many times on the podcast, as far as live bands are concerned, there are few bands I've ever seen that can match the intensity of that band when they were kind of in their, when they were hitting their stride. By which I mean two times. Like, one was before, I think when they had just gotten back together, and they were just doing the first three records, and then any video that you see of them in like the early to mid 90s, what they were doing to audiences, I think, frankly, and some will say this is heresy, I think put Slayer to shame. But anyway, that is on its way. What else is there to talk about? No interest in talking about Michael Schenker. I just saw news there about Uada putting out a new album. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but I'm not a big fan of Uada. I've never been, to be honest. I've tried so many times to get into them, but they're a little bit like Watain in that so many people will recommend them. But whenever I listen to them, there's just something missing. Speaking of something missing, Ghost unveil new single. Now, I'm going to listen to this just because I know it fucking sucks. But I want to be able to talk about how much absolute wank this band has produced. So the single is called 20s. It's off their soon-to-be-released album, Impera. Let's listen to the first minute or two. Already I can see what they're going for here. They're kind of going for sort of the roaring 20s, 1925, 1926 feel with that orchestral music. But it sounds to me like the fucking menu screen music on World of Warcraft. I mean, it sounds low rent. Drums don't sound bad. I like that little double bass pop that they've got at the back end of that riff. I mean, the riff itself, it sounds again like something that a riff master like Gary Holt or Matt Pike or Kirk Weinstein. That's the sort of shit they do for a warm up. God. I mean, I've never been the biggest fan of Tobias's vocals, but they just sound so nasally and so fucking whiny.
We'll be singing in a rain of pennies in the 20s. We'll be soaring in the skies of baby.
Nah, fuck that. I don't want to listen to that nonsense anymore. We'll be soaring in, what did he say? We'll be soaring in the disguise of bevies. That's just like you want the chorus to rhyme and you ran out of words and you went through the dictionary and just found something that bevies rhymes with pennies. So there you go, just shove it in there. What a load of shit. This band had its moments, but they have well and truly jumped the shark. Shit band, and people that continue to fall for the gimmick. I don't know what to say to you. There's a lot of other shit that you could be listening to that's a million times better. This was big news. Testament recruit Dave Lombardo as new drummer. I think a lot of people speculated that this might be the case. It says, after parting ways with Gene Hoglan in January, Testament are now proud to announce the replacement. None other than the legendary, and I think this must have been a fuck-up on Metal Storm's part, David Vincent Dave Lombardo. So I suspect it might just be Dave Lombardo rather than David Vincent. But anyways, or maybe he's called David Vincent Lombardo. Who knows? Maybe I'm just sounding like an ignorant buffoon, yeah. But again, I have better things to do with my time than learning the Christian names of every musician I like. But anyways, as some of you might know, in the late 90s, Dave was part of the band for a short period of time and contributed his share on the Gathering record. I fucking love the Gathering, and I think that people that overlook that record are wrong to do so. More can be read below. Chuck Billy declares, I'll state the obvious. We are more than overwhelmed to welcome back Dave Lombardo to play drums with Testament. We're so excited to share the stage again with Lombardo. Dave added immense power when he joined the band for the Gathering, and we are ecstatic to see what new flavor he will bring back to Testament. Dave Lombardo stated, this is a long-awaited reunion that was bound to happen. Once upon a time, we created a thrash experience. A thrash masterpiece. I have no doubt that our musical chemistry will pick up exactly where we left off. I love the Testament family, and I'm very excited to be joining them once again. Pure brutality awaits. Alex Skolnick said, yo bros, Scully D, yeah. I'm currently investigating whether Dave Lombardo voted for Trump. If he did, he'll be out before we record the new album. So, I did speculate on the podcast previously that Gene might have been out because of political differences between he and old Scully D. But that meandering aside, I think it's a good fit. I can't imagine anybody else doing it outside of Dave. With Gene gone, I'm going to miss him. I like Gene Hoglan's drumming very, very much, and I think it's really suited Testament's music. But I think Dave will do a fantastic job. And the exciting thing is, it seems like they will be in the studio very soon. So when they put out a new record, I have already started the begging with the Nuclear Blast folk to let me speak with Chuck Billy and have him on the podcast. Another absolute dream guest. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of my thoughts on Testament again. You guys know what I think of them. So either way, good news for them. Danzig announced 2022 US tour dates. I don't live in the US, so it doesn't necessarily benefit me at all. I wanted to only mention this because my friend Christian Larson and Necrosphere have been given a slot on this tour. So they talk about, Cradle of Filth, Crowbar, Tiger Army being on the tour. But like I said, far more importantly, Necrosphere is going to be on the tour. And I think that's fucking brilliant news. And I am very, very, very pleased for Christian. I think, I know he's like a fucking kid at Christmas about this, as I would be as well, quite frankly. And I saw Danzig when they did the first album back-to-back, and that was back in 2018 or 2019. 2018, I think it was. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I don't give a shit that dude is in his early 60s. He can still rip with the best of them. Next one, Abbath, the Book of Breath single unleashed. Abbath are releasing a brand new lyric video for the song The Book of Breath, taken from the upcoming record Dread Reaver. The video is now streaming at the official Season of Mist YouTube channel. Dread Reaver will be released via Season of Mist on March 25th. Do you guys want to hear that? I think you do. Let's give it a spin. Those lyrics aren't the best, but the way that he says, tempered in the furnace, I fucking love. I think that's fucking badass. And look, I have said to you guys, I've had this record for about 2 months now, so this is not the first time I'm hearing that song. I haven't spent as much time with it probably as I should, but my initial impressions of it are it's way better than the last two Abbath records. It feels to me spiritually to have a lot more in common with which was the record I think he put out back in something like 2008, 2007. And I really like that record, and I never understood why he didn't lean into that side of his musical palette a little bit more when he's, went out and did his solo work. But definitely feels to me like that, like this new record has more of that vibe. More of that kind of black and roll style that really just suits him very, very well. And he delivers it in a way where, it may be black and roll, but it still sounds just straight up badass. Speaking of black and roll, possibly one of the most badass black and roll bands, Cloak. I have been getting into them quite a bit recently, and I'm going to be having Scott from Cloak on the podcast at some point very soon. So look out for that one if you're a fan of Cloak. I've actually got it booked for this next week, and then I also have another one booked with King Dude. Now that one is that once a year time that I ask you to indulge me while I interview somebody that's not in a metal band or not at least in the metal industry. But that being said, King Dude was in a black metal band. I can't remember what the band was called, but I remember I listened to the record and it was pretty good. But that being said, also when I look at Instagram and things like that, I know King Dude and I follow each other on Instagram, which, by the way, fucking blew my mind that he followed Into the Necrosphere, and that's kind of how we got talking. But anyway, there's a lot of you that seem to like his music. So, should that happen, and I'm never 100% certain until these things are actually in the tank. But I reckon that's going to be a very fascinating conversation. I did notice as well, there's not a huge number of long form interviews with the guy. So either it's just because people are sleeping on the man's brilliance, but it could also be that I've got my work cut out for me. But either way, I'm very excited about that. I love King Dude. I'll talk more about it when he's actually on the podcast. But I think spiritually, it fits in with the Into the Necrosphere ethos, even though he's not kind of pure cult evil black metal. All right, I think we're almost at the end of, at the very least, where I kind of left off last week on Metal Storm. The only one that I've not looked at yet, which I'll check out, and then we can head over to Blabbermouth, Allegion. Allegion's new record, Damnum, has been officially released last Friday. Coinciding with the release, the band debuted a new music video for one of the tracks, Vermin, directed by Carl Lamar. Let's listen to Vermin and see if Allegion are going to pull me out of the undecided camp and into the fan camp. I like that bass very much. I kind of wish the song could get started. It just feels to me like they're fucking about. But anyway. And they're continuing to fuck about. So let's skip to 2 minutes 10. That doesn't sound bad. I mean, up to this point, my favorite thing about Allegiant was a clip where they performed one of their songs in the New York subway. But that's not bad. I then again, you know, I do listen to it and I go, I mean, I've heard that kind of song a million times before. You know, the heavy verse, and then the verse right before we head to the chorus ends with a double track piece. I'm going to play them later on in the podcast, and I've spoken about them, already, but also many, many times on the show. But, for me, when it comes to death metal, there are few new bands that get it to the degree that Werewolves does. That's how death metal should sound, in my opinion. If you're not doing something that is creatively pushing the envelope, like Septicflesh, Immolation, or Ulcerate, it needs to be all about fucking hatred and violence. And when Werewolves do that better than, in my opinion, anybody else going right now. Anyone. So, all right, let's move over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music, and let's see what the latest, what the latest geopolitical analysis is that they're sharing with us. But I would say a lot of folks in the metal scene have been surprisingly quiet about what's going on in the Ukraine. I would have thought that at least by now we would have had a 9-paragraph essay from Randy Blythe, telling us what's going on, exactly why it's Trump's fault, and what needs to be done to fix it in his view, and how he can relate to the struggles of the people in the Ukraine because of the fact that he grew up in Virginia. But I will say this, some of this, what I'm about to say, might sound a bit controversial, but what is with all the fucking propaganda that is coming out at the moment, from the Ukraine side, the Snake Island bullshit and the Ghost of Kiev and all these Photoshop photos of Zelensky supposedly on the front lines. There was one yesterday that I saw where there's kind of a level to where people are posting these things, I think, just for the dopamine hit of them getting the likes as they post about how Zelensky is, delivering a masterclass in leadership. But there was a guy that posted something on LinkedIn where, he was talking about the masterclass in leadership, and there was a picture of Zelensky supposedly with his men in the, on the front lines, and it was so obviously fake and superimposed. Then you look at it and you go, why are you trying to convince me of something where I'm already on your side? And when I say me, I'm kind of talking about the royal me. Like, most of us in the West, unless you're congenitally fucking insane, you are strongly opposed to Russia invading Ukraine, and you are, you certainly want this mess to end as soon as possible. But whenever somebody is trying like super, super hard to convince me of something where I'm already on your side, I already agree with you, my guard starts to go up. It's like if I was sitting here at home and Paige were to say, it's raining outside, and I look outside and I go, yeah, you're right, it's raining. Yeah, but it's really raining outside. Yep, I saw it's raining. Yeah, but it's really raining outside. It's thunder and lightning, storms. It's like, okay, is it really raining outside now? I've already agreed with you twice, or is there something else going on? And that's kind of what I feel when I see all of this nonsense. And then you kind of have the media here in the West just egging this on. I saw something earlier. I'm going to see if I can find it on my phone real quick, just so that I don't misquote anything. But Glenn Greenwald, who, if you are on Twitter and you're interested in this sort of thing, I think provides a very balanced view or very balanced commentary generally on what's going on in the world. Again, he and I may differ on quite a lot of things politically, but I reckon he's the sort of dude you can, sit down and have a, pretty decent conversation with, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But he was posting a thing about this too. So he writes a tweet here that says, just a stunning article from the New York Times. For 5 years, U.S. corporate outlets have depicted disinformation as the gravest of threats requiring censorship. Yet here they use a playful, borderline admiring tone for the charming lies spread by Ukrainian officials. And this is in response to a New York Times article where the headline is "Fact and Myth-Making Blend in Ukraine's Information War." And the first paragraph of this reads, just days into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a pilot with a mysterious nickname was quickly becoming the conflict's first wartime hero. Named the Ghost of Kiev, the ace fighter had apparently single-handedly shot down several Russian fighter jets. The story was shared by the official Ukraine Twitter account on Sunday in a thrilling montage video set to thumping music, showing the fighter swooping through the Ukrainian skies as enemy planes exploded around him. The Security Service of Ukraine, the country's main security agency, also relayed the tale on its official Telegram channel, which has over 700,000 subscribers. I think something like 9.5 million people had viewed this on Facebook. And by the way, if you think that this is fucking, sky combat or air combat looks like Top Gun, Jesus Christ, watch a fucking military video on YouTube at some point. But anyways, just the whole thing to me just reeks of something being off. And like I said, I'm firmly in the corner of the Ukrainians. I'm firmly in the corner of war being an absolute load of bullshit, something that shouldn't be happening. But I feel like at the moment there's this desperate ploy to get us all emotionally invested in this fight between good, which is Ukraine, and evil, which is Putin. And that to me can be possibly a preamble to further military involvement by the US, by the rest of Europe. If it were to step up like that, I don't think anyone's going to win. But anyway, that's my take on that. I don't really know what to make of it at the moment. As I said, I just don't like when people are trying so hard to convince me of something where I already agree with them. The other thing, of course, the corporate virtue signaling continues in overdrive. Over here, the crisis has been all but solved by one of our big supermarkets, our supermarket chains, Sainsbury's, who announced that they will be dropping Russian vodka from their inventory, and they're also going to be changing the name of Chicken Kiev, which is one of their delicious, massively unnutritious and unhealthy ready meals, to Chicken Kiev, spelt K, I think it's KIYV or something like that. So rather than spelling it in the way that the Soviet Union spelt the name Kiev, they're now going to spell it in the way that Ukrainians do. And that is to show their solidarity for the Ukraine. Naturally means absolutely nothing. It's on a par with that moron from 90210, repeating poetry to Vladimir Putin. I played that last week. On reflection, as far as that is concerned, if Putin were otherwise, if he had access to the internet, I'm pretty sure if he had actually seen that shit, he would have leveled a neighborhood in the Ukraine, a random neighborhood, and he would have come on television and he would have made everyone aware, I did this because of poem dedicated to my mother. Any more poetry will be met with further bloodshed. So, I mean, why do people fucking do this? And the worst of all, why do people fall for this crap over and over and over again? Because I can guarantee you, there'll be, I've not looked, God forbid, I can't, my brain can't deal with it, but there will definitely be people that are posting all over social media, proud to be a Sainsbury's customer, blah, 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 they're standing up for what's right. It's no different to the virtue signaling that went on during the riots back in 2020. And you name me, if you can show me one company that, you know, had their little black square posted up and, you know, was going on about Black Lives Matter, one company that demonstrably improved the life of a kid living in a rough inner city impoverished neighborhood, I'd be fucking shocked, blown away. They might turn around and talk about all the minority people they're hiring, but the reality is they're giving opportunities to people who are already well qualified, well off financially, would have had those opportunities anyway, regardless of whatever little narrative these companies are trying to factor into it. Actually giving money to a school in a poor neighborhood, giving money to like investing money in a poor community like some of the poorest neighborhoods in Baltimore, the poorest neighborhoods in Detroit, never. That'll never fucking happen. Because there's no return on investment on it. And that's the reality of all of this, whether it's the Ukraine, whether it's BLM, it's a corporate commercial proposition for all of these businesses, and I'm pretty sure I'm preaching to the choir here, and people, you know, agree with me when I say this, but anyone who falls for that bullshit that has room temperature IQ. There's no two ways about it. Speaking of room temperature IQ, it says here, report Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne to leave Los Angeles for the UK to avoid rising taxes. You're all in for a shock, folks, because the taxes over here are on the rise as well. And if you add in VAT and you add in bullshit like fucking fuel excise and all of the other crap that they continually lump you with over here, national insurance and the like, I think the effective tax rate that we pay in the UK is something like 64% if you're in the top earning bracket. And then the other thing that I find astounding about people in the UK is that many of them are so detached from reality that they think somebody earning £90,000 a year or £100,000 a year is at CEO level. It's like, no, you fucking buffoon. You know, the way that salaries are right now, that's barely middle management in a lot of companies. But anyway, but you know, Los Angeles' loss is the UK's gain. Let's see. Oh, Clawfinger is back with new single, Environmental Patience. Let's check this out. It looks like the singer on that photo, for those of you watching this on YouTube, or not watching this on YouTube, I should say, the photo looks like the singer of Clawfinger has dipped into the old crystal meth more times than his mother thought thought healthy for him to do. But yeah, let's check out the latest smash hit single by Clawfinger. So far, it sounds like a patent ripoff of Depeche Mode and Rammstein. Literally, like they ripped off two separate songs and they said, let's just play them both at the same time and in the same key.
Face it, we're at the end of the line and all the signs indicate we run out of time, we can't rhyme. And there is no reason, we're living the dream, but we're losing the seasons. We've got our freedom, we've got our voices, but we still can't make any logical choices. Despite the voices, despite the warnings, we're warming the globe, but it's a sunny morning, so no one's mourning.
This is another reason for a dictator to declare war on the West. Fucking terrible songs like this, with grown men rhyming and running around pretending to be badasses and serious when I can tell from looking at that video, the estrogen count in that man is extraordinarily high.
The melting ice is, we're not prepared to make the sacrifices. No matter the crisis, whatever the price is, we're too preoccupied with our own slices. The spice of life is whoever dies.
We're too preoccupied with our own slices. What the fuck is he even talking about?
With the most toys gets the biggest prizes. The sad surprises at the end of the line when we realize we've been wasting our time. Environmental patience, trying to fix environmental cases. Environmental cases.
If you like this, then you may as well start checking out, I think they were called Newsboys, some Christian rap band, some Christian rap rock band from years back. I remember when I used to go to church as a young man, this fucking moron, Devin was his name, would try and convince me that my music was wrong, and he'd give me these tapes with an alternative to Slayer, and Newsboys was on one of them, and it was equally fucking crap to what I just heard there. All that song needed was a sample of Clawfinger's country woman Greta Thunberg going, "How dare you!" And it would have completed the triumvirate of, like I said, high estrogen, fucking pussy ass bullshit that I just heard. That is terrible. I mean, Clawfinger have always been awful, but that song is fucking abysmal. And I'm not hating on the environment or denying climate change, Christ forbid. But I do think a lot of the green energy lobby from a lot of people. I mean, some of we have these what are they called? Climate extinction or something, Extinction Rebellion here in the UK. I mean, those people, as far as I'm concerned, should be fucking tossed into the gulags that they so desperately hope to recreate in this country. Anyways, moving on. Rammstein condemns Russia's shocking attack on Ukraine. They talk there about how Russia is directly responsible for it, and yes, they are, but folks, you need to look a little closer to home. Your former Chancellor, Angela Merkel, was most definitely involved in this also, or at least her incompetence contributed to it. Your current Chancellor's incompetence has aggravated it, and sleepy Joe Biden, who on the State of the Union this past week said, Putin may surround Kiev with tanks, but he will never win the hearts and minds of the Iranians. That fucking sleepy old imbecile, he certainly contributed to it also. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about that again. I already spoke on that matter last week. Not a huge amount else here. Gene Simmons says Kanye West is out of his mind. There's something clinically wrong with him. I've heard that Kanye West has got as bipolar, and basically like he sort of leans into it when he's making a record, and then he goes back on his meds when he's done with the record. I don't like his music, but that's just what I heard. So Marco was rapping about how cool this Troops of Doom band is. The headline here reads, "The Troops of Doom featuring ex-Sepultura guitarist Jairo Tormentor Guades," I think is the surname, Altar of Delusion music video. Jairo looks like he's been doing cosplay out of the fucking Napoleonic era on that photo. But anyways, it says here, "The Troops of Doom, the new Brazilian band featuring former Sepultura guitarist Jairo Tormentor Guades, will release its debut album entitled Antichrist Reborn as a CD, digipack, and cassette on April the 15th via Alma Mater Records, the Portuguese powerhouse label run by Moonspell's Fernando Ribeiro." Moonspell, or the band formerly known as Moonspell, now known as Moonsmell. Anyways, let's listen to this track, and let's see if Marco is correct, or if I'm to cut him out of the loop and never listen to his recommendations ever again. He sounds so much like... Okay, so it's. I was wrong actually on that photo. That's not Jairo. That's Alex Kafer, who's the vocalist. But maybe I need to listen to this a little longer. But how much does Alex sound like Max Cavalera? I mean, this almost sounds like a Sepultura song. Like from the... If it sounds like if Sepultura made a record in between Arise and Chaos AD, this might be what it sounded like. I like it. I think it's cool. Let's listen to some more.
Your blows, the trumpet, the father, the son, and the hate, the weaknesses of living, that your savior
I'm gonna just move this song to the middle. I want to hear if there's like a bit of a breakdown or something, or a bit of a variation on what they're doing there. But what they're doing there, I like. I think that sounds fucking cool. My hands up. Apologies for ever doubting you, Marco. Only thing is, I skipped ahead now by 2 minutes. It sounds like we're literally still stuck in exactly the same place. So let's move on a bit more. Anyway, right. It doesn't sound like there's a huge amount going on there outside of the first bit, but the first bit is good enough to pique my interest. So, yeah, you can count me curious about what the rest of that record sounds like. That certainly sounds very cool. Exodus announces Persona Non Grata European Tour 2022. I'll still say, hand on heart, that's the most surprised I've been by a record in a very, very long time. I was not expecting a Exodus record to ever make it onto my top 20 of 2021. And I still fucking love that record. So it wasn't even like it just caught me at the right time. And then, sometimes you have those records that you listen to at the right time. And then, 6 months later, you kind of go, what the fuck? Why did I like it so much? But no, I still think this is hard shit. And if you, especially if you're a gym-going man or a gym-going woman, this is the music you listen to when you pump in that iron. Let's see what else. Meshuggah released new single Light the Shortening Fuse. Not going to listen to that. I don't really think there's a massive amount otherwise. Cradle of Filth cancels tour of Russia due to situation in Ukraine. Don't think Russia will be seeing gigs again there at any point soon. Right. This will be a good one to wrap things up with. Watain releases lyric video for new single Ceramosa. Loads and loads and loads of people have been urging me to give Watain another chance. I'm going to do so right now. I've not listened to the song whatsoever. I've not listened to The Howling, the other single they released. Let's see if this can sway me. I'm trying to think now. Did I listen to The Howling on an earlier one of these episodes? I don't think so, unless dementia is kicking in. Anyway, I've definitely not listened to Ceramosa, and I'm still, if I had to redo a top 50 favorite black metal bands list today, Watain would not be on it. If I did a top 100, they wouldn't make it on. So let's see if they can change my mind. I'm going to give this track a spin, see where we go. That's not bad. Still not giving me that kind of feeling of, something grabbing hold of my guts and yanking it apart. Like when I have limited time, right? You've got 24 hours in a day, of which if you're a health conscious person, you're sleeping for 7 to 8 of them. And I work, I'm on fucking conference calls and stuff all the time. So I have a limited amount of time to listen to music. So when I hear a song like that, I don't find it hugely offensive, but if I had to choose between listening to that and listening to Funeral Mist, or listening to that and listening to Drive Axe, or listening to that and listening to Tombs, or listening to that and Antichrist Imperium, or a host of other bands, what am I going to choose instead? And invariably, I don't think I would listen to Ceramosa, as he has just pronounced it there. It's not bad, but I don't know, there's just something that has always been lacking for me in this band. I don't know whether to call it a realness, But I keep going back to that story that Lior told on the podcast the last time he was on, about the dude he took with him to see Mayhem and to see Watain, and the dude came out and he said there was one band that convinced me and there was one band that didn't, and that dude was a non-metal man. Let's listen to a few more seconds and see if it picks up. Yeah, no, it's not bad. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? There's this comedy, I'm going to see if I can find the name, because it's worth checking out if you guys haven't seen it yet. There's this comedy group in Australia. They did this sketch on stage where they basically proved that most pop songs are written using 4 chords, or that they could recreate any pop song using 4 chords. It's called Axis of Awesome, and if you want to look up the video, it's called 4-chord song with song titles. And they go down the list, With or Without You by U2, Poker Face by Lady Gaga. This kind of reminds me of that in a way, because there's certain parts of the way that melody is constructed that sounds to me like every fucking other Swedish black metal band, whether it's Dark Funeral, whether it's Dissection. None of those bands are bad, and Dissection I like more so than the others. But there's just something about it that I've just never been able to get into. It just never convinces me. It's not like, I know they're Swedish as well, but it's not like when I listen to Marduk or when I listen to Mayhem. There's like I said to you, that there's that gripping me by my innards and yanking it around maniacally. It's just the best feeling on earth, and I don't get that feeling when I listen to this band. That's my take on it. I might be wrong. Maybe one day I'm going to turn around and say, y'alls were right. Watain is actually the best thing since Five Guys Burgers. But for now, I don't think that's going to happen. What I do know is going to happen is, sadly, we're going to have to finish off the news for this week. And perhaps even more tragically, it's the end of another episode of Into the Necrosphere. Thank you once again to Trevor for coming on and being such a great guest. Make sure you check out Abhoria. Make sure you check out ASHEN HORDE. Make sure you check out Crowbar. And definitely continue your vocal support for the band I'm going to play us out with. My buddies in Werewolves are about to drop a new EP called Death Metal. Very fittingly titled Death Metal, because like I said, when it comes to writing death metal that is true to the spirit of why I got into that genre in the first place, there is no better band on the planet right now than these guys, as far as I'm concerned. I know they bring out a 3rd record this year as well, which I'm super excited about. But everything, or this track certainly should get you fired up, if nothing else. But whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you're headed as you are listening to this, I hope that you all are safe and healthy. And once again, thank you from the bottom of my stone black heart for the support last week. Long may it continue. Make me feel like you didn't just watch the episode on YouTube to perv on Katie. But anyways, this is Werewolves. The song is called I Hate Therefore I Am. See you bad motherfuckers again next week.
Your goddamn master.
Watch each other.